So we have our setup here, my reference watercolor, the egg tempera with the transfer, my pigments that have been mixed with the egg water solution. This is distilled water, and this is water to clean my brushes. So I'm going to just start off by mixing some color. I have to remember to keep my brush kind of dry because I don't want to put too much water in this mixture. I want to keep it eggy. And I'm just going to start by mixing a few colors. Put a little egg in. So I'm going to just test this color. And when you put your paint on the gesso panel, it should dry. It dries almost immediately, but there should be a tiny bit of sheen, and that's the egg. So that's kind of perfect. And I won't test all my colors anymore because I'm kind of used to it. But I'm going to start off by blocking in very quickly this light. So, as you see, this is a completely different way of working with egg tempera. It's almost like gouache. Almost like a gouache, opaque watercolor. But now I decide that really too heavy. So I can use Q-tips and pull the paint back out. And I can kind of paint with the Q-tip, in fact. Move my color around. And almost end up using Q-tips as a paintbrush. Using Q-tips as a paintbrush. The scale that I'm choosing for this whole series of paintings is involved with the subject matter. This is sort of a story of hidden children. And I knew I wanted to go back to the figure at some point. And I also knew that I didn't want to go back to large-scale oil painting of the figure that I had done 30 years ago. That I had to find a way of working that would be different and that would also refer to the subject of these paintings, which is the intimacy of these hidden children. And the scale, I think, reflects the story and the kind of claustrophobia of being hidden. And the technique seemed to complement. But as you see, it's very quick, the way I'm working. Very, very quick. It's like I'm doing a watercolor. It's very much like I'm doing a watercolor. And that's kind of the beauty of it. Because unlike a watercolor, I can erase it. I can erase it. I can get back to the white. For weeks, for a few weeks after painting with egg tempera, it's flexible. And it can be opened back up again. So it's great to be able to live with them and see how they work, if they need work. Go back into them with water and a Q-tip and change them. When I was thinking about doing a series of work on children who are hidden, who have been hidden, I think about all the different social, political moments where children are kind of held hostage in terms of war, in terms of pandemic, the pandemic we all lived through, and children were a lot of abusive situations opened up around children during the pandemic, and that raised my interest in thinking about what I could do as a narrative series and what would best reflect a kind of, again, claustrophobia and fear. Maybe I need this dark here. You know, they can get muddy so quickly, so it's great that I can sit with them and decide a week later that I want to open them up again. You know, you can't do that with watercolor. But with this you can open it back up, get back to the white. I want this kind of group to be one mass with the light coming from behind. They're sort of backlit. I think this has to get darker. I think I could put maybe a glaze, a dark glaze over that. Anything that's transparent is a glaze. There's glazes with oil paint, glazes with watercolor. In this case, it means adding more medium, which is my egg. But I have to be careful. If they get too eggy, then they chip off. Well, that looks better. These paintings come together so quickly, but, you know, gathering images that might be appropriate and sitting with these potential images, and then doing the watercolors and seeing if the watercolors are interesting to me, and then sometimes it can go on for months, and then finally, you know, when it's time to make the painting, it's over in an hour. It's over in a half an hour. So it's a funny, I like that. I like that, sitting with it and then having it all happen very quickly. And usually I work on a few at once. I work on one, I let it sit, I go back to another one. I don't tie it up in one sitting. I'm doing that right now, but it's unusual. What I showed before with the traditional ink underpainting, building up your values with the ink underneath, that's the traditional technique of egg tempera. And the way I'm using it now, so quickly, so thin, with such washes, and is a completely different way of working with egg tempera. It's like a drawing. It's just like a drawing. I prefer the spontaneity of this way of working with egg tempera. It's more suitable to my nature, and I like the fact that, most importantly, is I like the fact that I can move things around and take them away and add them back in, as opposed to being stuck with the underpainting and having to rely on that. See, I should bring this figure much smaller. Much smaller. I made sketches for these paintings over 10 years ago and put them away and completely forgot about them. And in 2019-20, during the pandemic, when everybody was cooped up, I remembered that I had these drawings of hidden children and started to think about working them. So they percolated for a long time. Yeah, that's looking a little better. See, the white of the board is always there behind the egg tempera. It's just amazing that it's always there. I mean, for a few months. And you can't, then it's been fixed and you can't get back to it. It can go on forever. I can stop now and then decide in a few weeks that I want to go back into it. But at the moment, this is how I'll leave it. At the moment, this is how I'll leave it. I want a nice crisp edge.